What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.
UFC 240 just completed yesterday as I record this from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Headlined by the GOAT of all GOATs, Max Holloway, versus legend of all legends, Frankie Edgar. Co-headlined by one of the most dangerous women in the sport, clearly. Chris Cyborg versus Felicia Spencer. Overall, a fun night of fights, some good performances, some good knockouts. Dawodu looked great after maybe some difficulty. Arajo looked good against Davis. That was a fun fight. Kind of a snoozer for the first fight of the pay-per-view. Jotko versus Baralt. A lot of clinching. I mean, it was a grinding fight. They weren't just holding. It wasn't like some fights where a fighter will just pin somebody on the cage and just clearly stalling, not really looking to land anything, not looking to get anybody down. This one was a big war up against the cage, but it was all right. And then Aubin Mercier came out in, again, a kind of he looked good, but ended up not really being able to do much from the ground, which is where it spent a lot of the time. Nico Price came out against Jeff Neal, looked good, but ended up getting knocked out. I don't think it was an early stoppage. I could see it. I think he kept repeating to the other dude, Sarukian, that he hated him. And a lot of the times I've heard stories about when you get concussed, kind of they end up repeating the same thing over again because they don't remember they just did that. Which he took a lot of punishment towards the end there, and could have easily been just out of it. But it was a good win for Jeff Neal. He looked great. Felicia Spencer against Chris Cyborg. This was probably the most surprising performance. Spencer can take a punch, but she landed some lead elbows, cut up Cyborg. She was in this fight. If this was a 5-round fight, it could have potentially, maybe she could have gotten the win. Maybe. I mean, in the third round, Cyborg kind of turned it up and was able to land some punches and was able to get the win. I mean, she clearly won, I believe, all 3 rounds. But Felicia Spencer was right in there. Like, if she had been able to get it to the ground or land, a couple more of those elbows. She was trying to throw like this no-see elbow while she was pinning Cyborg up against the fence, which was missing. But if she was able to connect on some of those, I think she was just off on missing. But she definitely showed Cyborg to be not as much of a threat as she used to be. I mean, she came in, maybe she was tentative. Maybe Cyborg was a little tentative after her knockout loss. Especially in this one, getting caught with that elbow probably shook her up a bit, made her a bit nervous to engage. But it wasn't until the third round where Cyborg really, because when she starts throwing, she's a scary person. But if you're somebody like Nunes who can catch somebody and who could box and stay in the pocket, it doesn't work out as well. But Cyborg won it. I'm excited to see Spencer in that division. I think it helps that division a lot to have somebody who is willing to take Cyborg 3 hard rounds. I mean, and her ability to take a punch is one thing, but she was able to give it and dish it, and it was a good hard win for Cyborg. I would imagine the Nunes fight is what's next. I can't see Cyborg going to another. I mean, I could see maybe her going to one championship. I think they're kind of the secondary, like the aside from the UFC being the top, especially in the kind of English speaking market, one tends to be the number one in the Asian market, and that's, from all I've heard, is huge, is a gigantic audience. Whereas Bellator is kind of the number 2 in this English-speaking market, but I think it puts it way behind. I think 1 is overall globally, it's UFC, then 1 championship, then a little bit lower down is kind of Bellator. Bellator is still kind of the retirement place. They have some good fighters, whatever. But, and I'm sure they have great fights and all that stuff, but they are very much kind of the retirement league for the UFC in a lot of ways. And it's good for these fighters. You know, they're getting older. There's less testing in Bellator, so they can get away with a lot more. They don't have to deal with USADA. Same thing with 1 championship. I don't know. Aside from, I like 1 championship that they don't have to cut weight, that they do water tests on their fighters leading up to the fight so that fighters can fight at a more natural weight class and not have to stress their bodies out dehydrating to make a certain weight for like 10 minutes only to bulk back up to a much larger size. That I appreciate from 1 championship. But as far as drug testing, I don't know what they do. As far as I'm concerned, UFC has the strictest drug policies in all of combat sports. But I can't see Chris Cyborg going anywhere. I mean, it makes the most sense for her to stay in the UFC. And she's like a huge name, and she's still dangerous. You know, even though Nunes, like if she fights Nunes and she gets the win in Nunes, then you have a rubber match. Like you're keeping that 145 division alive, so maybe there's other women that start to fill it in, populate the division, and really get some excitement going. But also, it was the 145 men's championship. Max Holloway versus Frankie Edgar. Edgar looked, solid as ever. Wasn't able to get any of the takedowns. But Max Holloway is he's the GOAT, man. He knows how to use his reach. He knows how to use his length. He's super accurate, just good hands, good takedown defense. You could tell that he was once scheduled to fight against Khabib. He's been working those and maybe coming for potentially fighting Khabib down the road. You never know. Going back to lightweight eventually when he gets older. But Max Holloway at 145 is the GOAT beyond GOATs. And another great performance. It was nailing Frankie Edgar with those uppercuts and brutal. And I like the production of this was just Anik and Rogan. They didn't have a guest fighter analyst. It was a very old school commentating, which I appreciated as well. But next fight is Colby Covington versus Robbie Lawler. I'm hoping Robbie Lawler gets a big win. Jim Miller versus Clay Guida. Both great fighters. I would imagine Miller is kind of on a comeback. So I think he might win against Guida. But yeah, next card looks like it's going to be a fun one. This one's going to be Mickey Gall is fighting the prelims. He's the feature bout on the prelims, but this one's coming from Newark, New Jersey. So I'm looking forward to that card. It's, I believe, an ESPN card, just regular ESPN. So it looks like to be a lot of fun fighters on that card. Looking forward to it. And a good pay-per-view. Wasn't the best pay-per-view ever, but just some fun fights, and I will never miss a Frankie Edgar or Max Holloway fight. Max Holloway is just pound for pound in that division. It's just nothing. Nobody's even close. That's it for this episode. New episodes daily. Subscribe on IGTV, YouTube, and everywhere else podcasts are found. Go buy my original artwork over at InspiredDisorder.com and save 10% when you use coupon code INSPIRED. At Ray Taylor for me on all social media. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!